and war.
Football, brought to you by Edgechem, AIM Financial Corporation, Texaco, and Connex.
We want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah. Yo, what are you? We have to be.
Oh man, no, no, brother, no. I'm not that.
You don't see you ever play ref? No, piggy, I'm not playing.
Yeah, but I look a bad game. No, I said, place you come from, brother. I want to live good, man. I want to live good, Bridging. No shake on, I can play a little bad, Bridging.
Really have to shake on?
Yeah, man, and no badness, Bridging. Just live good, man.
Come together as one and make the violence done.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out, don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
The Commissioner of the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, says he continues to be concerned by the high number of police personnel who find themselves before the courts answering charges related to their interactions with members of the public. He believes the findings concerning those prosecutions detailed in a report by INDECOM are enough for the police high command to do something regarding the training of police personnel and, of course, their instructions given when they go on the streets. He stops by Lead Story this evening to also talk about the issue of body-worn cameras and how the police continue to not use them in the prescribed manner or even as frequently as would be desired. Lead Story starts now. Let's start the show. Good evening, welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. My name is George Davis. So the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, has been in the news because its commissioner, Hugh Faulkner, has been talking about issues concerning body-worn cameras. He's gotten support on that point from Jamaicans for Justice. There was an article in the Gleaner on Sunday from Michael Jackson, the executive director of JFJ. More than the body-worn cameras issue, though, Hugh Faulkner has raised concern about what he says is the concerning number of police personnel who find themselves before the courts answering to a range of charges, including murder and assault, coming out of their interactions with civilians on the nation's streets. And he has come here this evening to put some more perspective to the nuggets that we have seen from the reports so far. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, George, and thanks for having me. And good evening to your listeners.
Excellent. My viewers as well. You're used to being radio listeners.
Indeed,
that's
indeed,
fine. That's
indeed.
fine. It catches me sometimes as well.
Right.
All right. Commissioner, you note in the report, and let me read the line. It says, the Commission's view is that for a unitary police force under a singular leadership and command, the number of police officers subject to criminal prosecution is concerning. When you consider the realities of policing in a place like Jamaica, where we are in many ways a lawless people, we are very aggressive, and we toe the line of decency so often, even in our interactions with people who are empowered to enforce the law. What are you saying to the public by virtue of this concern as expressed?
Right. Well, George, if you may allow me to put things in a bit of perspective.
Sure.
Right. So INDECOM is an independent civilian oversight body. Mm-hmm. The model that INDECOM is based on is that civilians form the oversight body. The previous model included law enforcement officers. Mm-hmm. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights did not find favor with that model. Mm-hmm. And the government, in its wisdom, in 2009 and commenced in 2010, established INDECOM. So as an independent civilian oversight body, mm-hmm. we have a mandate to investigate the actions of the security forces that result in death or injury or abuse. This aligns well with the concept of the rule of law. Mm-hmm. And I put that in perspective, George, mm-hmm. because the views in the streets are divided.
Yes.
Right. So the rule of law indicates that law itself rules.
Yes.
So there's no office, there's no authority that supersedes the law.
Yes.
It is against this context that we carry out our duties. And we are saying that both law enforcement and the citizens have a duty in their response to each other in interactions. But there's a higher onus, in my view, on the trained law enforcement body to act in compliance with rules, laws, and regulations.
Yes.
That is why when an officer departs from such and ends up in the criminal justice system, then the leadership, in my view, has a duty to inquire, to investigate, and to ensure that all the remedial steps are taken, that it does not recur.
But the leadership of the High Command and their supporters out in the public would say that INDECOM appears to not make any allowance for the realities of policing, which reflect a citizenry that is bold enough to see a policeman or a woman, police personnel, armed, bearing an arm, bearing a weapon, and still look to attack that person, still look to confront that person, still look to tell that policeman, you can't lock him up, you can't take the man goods. In that reality, they say that INDECOM is perhaps taking too severe a view of the conduct of police personnel in those powder keg situations. Your response to that?
Right. So the law enforcement officer judge is clothed with legal armory. The law enforcement officer can arrest, can detain until further information to lead to a charge. The law enforcement officer is armed, sometimes small arms, sometimes
high-powered weapons.
High-powered weapons. The citizen, in my view, may take the errant path, but that's not an invitation for the trained law enforcement officer to head in that direction. So in my view, there's a greater onus on the law enforcement officer. In certain situations, allow it that arrest can be done at a later stage.
Yes. Hold a point. Let's take our first break here on Lee's story. He says nobody's above the law, but the greater responsibility lies with those who are trained and who have the power of the law behind them to not be dragged down to the level of lawlessness. More on Lee's story after these.
Rotted. Johnny, your bag. Jump in the water with fisherman license tonight.
Don't worry about that, man.
Accidents do happen, but easy application for your fishing license from your smartphone makes things a little easier. iRefins allows you to register for any fishing license, permit, or authorization anytime, anywhere. With iRefins, you get faster processing times when you register online from any mobile device or computer. A new system, the iRefins system, for fishers like
Me.
And me.
And me.
Ask about iRefins, the new system for fishers and fish farmers. Register today for an easier way.
iRefins is a joint project of the National Fisheries Authority and the Transformation Implementation Unit.
The latest INDECOM quarterly for the April to June period this year, reflecting on the period 2011 to 2023, that 13-year period. and showing the number of prosecutions of police personnel. 214 police personnel from the JCF, of course, 7 from the Correctional Services, Department of Correctional Services, 4 soldiers, and those were the prosecutions. In terms of the number the cases that have started, 118 cases have been concluded, 50 cases still await trial. So I want to go back, Commissioner, to the issue of the number of police personnel facing prosecution, and you're concerned because, again, even before that, I wanted to address this squarely. The issue of the environment. You've said that police who are trained ought not to allow themselves to be dragged down to the level of lawlessness, but it is inherently difficult, even with the highest training, to remain professional and to not react with what may be reasonably described as excessive force. When you are effecting an arrest, you're trying to use the powers that you say the police are clothed with, but you meet such resistance from the public that perhaps you have to be excessive to enforce order and to ensure that the rule of law, the train of the rule of law, can get out of the train station. You are saying that you are not concerned by those realities. I want to hear you in your own words.
Right. Well, George, your question just now leads back to your prior question, where I had indicated that there's a duty on the law enforcement officer to act within the confines of the law. I must complete that prior thought with your leave, that there is responsibility on the part of the public. And to that extent, we have sought to devise a program, our public sensitization program, which we will seek to launch in the new financial year, because we believe the public could be assisted in their approach to law enforcement officers. You have seen instances where requests are made for documents, car documents, and a verbal encounter commences. This escalates into physical. So we'll be addressing that, George. But what we advise the public is to complain, then comply. To your substantive question, George, we do not disregard the environment that we live in, but the environment cannot mitigate the thoroughness of our investigation. And it doesn't remove in any dimension the obligation of the law enforcement officer to be subject to the rule of law himself or herself.
Yeah. I note that you speak to the number of prosecutors that you have across the island. You say you have, what, 60 deployed? Prosecutors, investigators.
Yes,
60.
about 58.
About 58.
Yes, so we'll be seeking to expand our prosecutorial, our investigative team, and to that extent, we will be seeking to expand our office structure and a number of other improvements in the making.
If that is a limitation, Commissioner, someone would say, well, say you have a round number, 60, nice round number, 58 you say, approximately 60. That works out to what? 5 per parish, 14 parishes, 5 times 14, so 70, so you're 10 short. They'd say, well, that's enough coverage, and even so, Kingston and St. Andrews, where the bulk of incidents are reported in, not occurred, because they're talking about reports. So how is this a limitation to the efficiency with which INDECOM can attend to its job of exerting oversight on the conduct of members of the security forces?
Right, George, you must have an adequate cohort of investigators. If not, the hardworking investigators of INDECOM, you run the risk of burnout. Before the proper and total completion of a matter, they're jumping to another matter. This is a 24-hour engagement. So at any...
crime happens around the clock and police shoot people around the clock.
So once we're notified of an incident, regardless of the time, our investigators respond to the call. So you need an adequate number of investigators.
You have 58 now.
Well, I would put it to about 15 more investigators at least. And I would also suggest about 10 more forensic personnel. And we'll be adding to our cohort, forensic digital forensics expert.
So it's not a jump ahead in the interview to talk about personnel, because often when we do these things, we don't often ask the office holder about the resources that they have to do the job, because Indicom is pointing out deficiencies in how the police are using force, how they're exercising their authority. But there also is the question about how well Indicom is using the resources at its disposal and whether Indicom itself can perform at a higher standard.
Right.
So the question is intended to probe at just that.
We are seeking to do that, George. In fact, we have amended our mission and our vision. We have amended the mission to totally align with what the act says you are to do. That's your mission. Your vision is where you wish to be.
Yes.
Now, we have to be modest in the vision, given that we know there are times when reports take, some time before it gets back to us.
Yes.
We would wish that we guarantee to the citizen of Jamaica 12 months for the start to conclusion. But we understand the pressures on the forensic lab being the lab for every entity.
Overwhelmed. After the break, we'll talk about the matters in front of the courts and how long the court is taking to see these matters through to the end. A case of justice being denied because of the interminable amount of time, length of time it takes for these matters to be adjudicated and pronounced.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45. These days, challenges are everywhere and things are constantly changing, but independent living remains the same. Rising above physical challenges, we can help you do it. For years, we have been Jamaica's trusted provider for solutions to improve patient care, safety, and the general quality of life. No matter your age or your physical limitation, we are the caring store, waiting to serve you. It's time to experience independent living. Visit us today.
I've been wanting to get to you for a long time. Shucky ducky quack quack.
I'm getting scared. Family Feud.
Brought to you by We Are the Caring Store, waiting to serve you. It's time to experience independent living. Visit us today.
Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV. The Commissioner of Indicom, Hugh Faulkner, is my guest. The thing is this. We have to talk about body-worn cameras in this segment, Commissioner, because that's the hot topic right now. The police have said, look, operationally, members can't turn them on because during interactions, during skirmishes, my term, they might fall off, or you found that they're not being turned on, they're rarely being used, and you cite it as a failing, without using that language, of how the police conduct their operations. What will it take them to move the needle in the right direction where the use of the body-worn cameras are concerned, especially given that the police can't say, as they previously did, that they don't have enough of them?
Yeah. Well, George, with regard to body-worn cameras, we recall that in 2020, the JCF had made reference to what they termed their body-worn camera project. And at the time, we were advised that 390 cameras were deployed across 18 police locations. The plans were and it was a gradual plan. We have no control over their budgetary assessment. So we accepted that in 2022, 2023, an additional 400 cameras would come on board. And we have had subsequent assurances from all the security forces. So we're saying, given that the project started in 2020, we would have expected that it would be further advanced. And in terms of the value to investigation, George, the body-worn camera is like a neutral party capturing an event. It is void of human bias. It is void of human embellishment. It is void of selective recollection. All these, with the human witness, we're human beings, can taint an investigation or make it incomplete. The body-worn camera, it will give you perspective and context, not just the particular incident of engagement, but it gives you the before, the during, and the after. Because even in some incidents where there are injuries, then what happens during that, the urgency, the steps taken to ensure persons, the injured receive treatment are also important. So it can give you the pre, the now, and the post.
So why are they being used so infrequently, you believe?
If we are to be fair, Judge, there have been jurisdictions where, and some persons define it as a cultural resistance, right? I wouldn't wish to make a ruling on it, but that has been offered in some jurisdictions.
So you've told us in your report that the cameras were not used, not even in one single instance of any of the incidents that is under Indicom's probe, not one.
Well, in 2023, of about 90 plus shootings, there was only one.
Only one.
Where the incident was, where the cameras were used. But we have observed that even where the low utilization of the cameras are concerned, the utilization is even lower or zero when it involves shooting. So we are saying that is something that the JCF High Command will have to look at, and we have provided the 2023 data and the 2024 data to the JCF, and we have provided specifics. The particular incidents and where officers indicate that they were issued with, they were adorned with, but did not utilize.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner. I get the impression that you don't want to go too strong on the advocacy for the police to use them in the prescribed manner. You seem to be saying to me and to Jamaica that Indicom's job is just to point out that they are not being used and to also highlight how they would improve matters, improve the resolution of matters that go before the court. Am I correct?
Well, there's no legislative mandate
for advocacy on your part.
No, for body-worn cameras to be used. There are some
which is why you're taking the approach that you're taking.
Right. There are some jurisdictions in the U.S. where they're in the absence of a plausible explanation, then an officer could open himself or herself to prosecution, plus the civil consequences of that. But the JCF, and again, we must note, we are giving you the full story, they have created the protocol governing the use of body-worn cameras, which is a step in the right direction.
So you are not displeased with the incremental progress that has been made to this point, even though you wish the equipment was being used with greater regularity?
Well, I couldn't say I'm satisfied, George, or the Commission. We would wish that the process would have advanced a bit hastier. But in terms of the mandatory use, force orders, etc., could make it a mandatory process rather than discretionary.
Is it true, Commissioner, that the majority of complaints made against police personnel by civilians, that the overwhelming majority of complaints do not result in the officer being found liable for misconduct?
That is so, George. That is so. Yes. Because you find, for example, for the period January to October 2024, the cases that we have submitted, we have received 23 rulings for officers to be charged. Of that 23, 8 cases would be for murder.
Yes.
But you would have had far more complaints than that.
Yes.
But a multiplicity of reasons explain that. And you would have looked at the court report that there are matters, those that invoke mediation conclude within a reasonable time. Yes. And there are others that have being stretched across the system.
And I just want to read this case scenario. I have no time, but I have to read it. An accused first appearance in court, initial remand was for 6 months. This is from the Indicom report. Over a period of 48 months, 4 years, the case has subsequently had 12 further court appearances in front of 5 different judges, 6 different trial dates set. On 2 of the appearances, the accused officer failed to appear. The defense lawyer was absent on 5 occasions. Account of illness, change of lawyer. 1 occasion, witness failed to attend on time. An initial trial date of March 2022 was now settled on a January 2025 trial. And at the last court appearance, 2 witnesses said they no longer wish to participate owing to the lengthy postponements. Justice is being compromised, Mr. Commissioner, is the last point I'm putting to you. Are you agreeing on that? Not just where Indicom matters are concerned, but matters broadly before the courts.
Right, I agree that the burden on the court is huge.
Overwhelming.
Is overwhelming.
And frustrating, causing pain points at different points in the system.
But what I would wish you would add to that summary is that the witness, after a number of years, decided that I am no longer interested.
As a consequence of the delays.
Consequences. So that is something that we face. So we have to be bolstering our witness liaison connections.
Yes.
We have added family liaison to ensure that the persons remain faithful to the process.
I'm out of time. My producer is getting mad at me. So here's the thing. I've said before, and I'll say again, Indicom, very, very useful tool. I was very happy with the advent of Indicom. What it replaced was not fit for purpose. I believe that Indicom's work over time, from Terence Williams and his team through now to Hugh Faulkner and his team, they have helped to make the police better. The professionalization of the police force, which is a continuous process, a continuing process, has gotten a lot of impetus from the work of Indicom. Oversight, strong oversight, unbiased oversight, uncompromised oversight has caused the police to be better men and women, more fitter for purpose than they were before. It is an institution that is to be supported. I would say that I don't believe that there are any hidden agendas being carried out by the people who serve Indicom. I don't believe that they're an enemy of the JCF, and I'm very happy now that I think that less people believe that now than those who did, especially at the time when certain police personnel set politicians against the organization so as to believe that they were there to make mugs of police personnel and put them in the line of fire and to compromise their safety. You're talking about an institution that demands support, and that the Police High Command should do a better job of listening to, strengthening the partnership with, because in so doing, you can only strengthen Jamaica and protect the democracy that we so richly enjoy. That's my perspective. Those are my 2 cents. I want to thank you, Faulkner, the Commissioner for Indicom, for stopping by this evening, and I turn you over now and put you into the hands of Nika Lewis for the news at 7.
Hi everyone, my name is Kurt Dunn.
Greetings from Kali's Kelly Yoga.
Hey, it's Robin Morrison, and I am your National Physical Activity Specialist. And it's time to make a move.
Jamaica, let's get moving again. Season 2 of the Ministry of Health and Wellness Jamaica Move series is here. Join us Wednesdays at 5 a.m. and Saturdays at 8 a.m. right here on CVM TV. Let's get moving.
Make a move now.